We're excited this week to talk about something that we definitely value within the school, and that's our foundational component of a continuum of supports. We want to be able to share why is the continuum valuable, but then more importantly, how do we bring it to life within our school?
Are you a leader who is navigating the nuances of leading collaborative response in your school or district? Are you unsure of what collaborative response is? Are you looking to understand the critical role leadership plays when establishing and refining a collaborative response approach?
Collaborative response began as a grassroots approach to focus on the needs of students through a framework of collaboration. That approach has grown to a movement that is training leadership and education.
Through the Leading Collaborative Response podcast, Kurtis and I share our own experiences of leading collaborative response and lessons learned as we continue to learn and gain insight through the experiences of working alongside others. We also have the opportunity to engage in conversations with school and divisional leaders implementing the framework in their own organizations.
We know great leaders build great teams because that is what every child deserves. Subscribe to the Leading Collaborative Response podcast and join the thousands of schools seeing success for students through intentional and focused collaborative efforts.
So over the last number of weeks, I've been working a lot in divisional leadership days. So these are days where school leadership teams come together. We focus in over the course of the year. Typically 4 times during the year, we're coming together. And in these last rounds, I've been looking at the continuum of supports, the development, and then continuous refinement and utilization. So let's start with first, before we start talking about how to bring it to life, let's talk about why. Why is the continuum of supports so important as one of the foundational components for collaborative response?
So very simply, the continuum of supports is articulating how we provide support for students in a particular focus area.
So I've been sharing, it's really twofold. First off, the artifact or the anchor resource that we create through the process has huge value to be able to continually reference when we're thinking about how to support students, when we're examining classroom practice, when we get into team meetings and we ask the question of, so what should we do? Becomes a huge resource for that actual artifact or anchor resource. And we'll make sure to include some process slides that we use with schools to create their continuum from scratch. But the second reason is it's a mechanism for creating a constant conversation about practice and how we go about responding. It starts with the initial conversation of, we do good things in this building or in this school, name them, because we are going to articulate, organize them, and then just continually come back to this refinement. Once we have that continuum in place, or multiple continuums in place, if we have multiple focus areas that we're looking at, it's just deprivatizes practice. It just helps to normalize the culture in which we talk about what we do within our schools.
Well, and creating that common understanding and consistent language across the whole school and from classroom to classroom. But we know that when we go through that first activity of being able to identify what are the practices that are happening in each classroom and what's the expertise that we have in the building, we spend a lot of time engaging in those beautiful conversations and debates about where those different strategies, which we adore doing that, doing that build of the continuum. But sometimes what we find is that staff teams will go through that exercise, and then someone will in the school compile it into a really nice visual.
Yeah,
And
that
then
document or that artifact. Yeah.
And then sometimes what happens is that it ends up on someone's drive, or it ends up in a folder, or it ends up on the wall for a year
Yeah.
without the refinement. And as Kurtis said, we've talked a little bit about, how we refine it. The important part is that we need to think and be intentional about that first realm of development and refinement is really critical. But now, how are we going to actually use it so that it impacts our students and it impacts our practice as teachers?
All right, so let's share some of the things that we've experienced, that we've seen, or we've talked to leaders that they've done within their school of how they've brought their continuums to life and being really intentional about it. So I love this example that I've seen in many different schools of creating the visual display.
Yeah.
So you and I have both been in a few different schools where they have a meeting space, and then on the wall are their continuums brought to light. The interventions, the strategies, the accommodations are listed on cards. And this is something we did early on before we had an idea of what we were doing, but being able to put it on a bulletin board right in our meeting space so that when we say, what should we do? We're actually turning right to that and referencing, we're adding things to it, we're taking things off. Why don't you share the one that you were in a little while ago, where we often say, don't laminate your continuum of supports, but this was an example where they did, and it was really effective.
Yeah, so being able to create a poster of their current continuum, and then they would laminate it and put it up in their meeting space. And then during their meetings, they would talk about strategies that they wanted to add to that continuum. And so they would actually write on with a whiteboard marker, they would write on the poster. And when the poster got really messy with lots of different things, and they would cross things off too. If they were realizing that there was something on there that they actually don't use readily.
Or it's not having the impact that we'd really like to see.
They would, when it got really messy, they would take it down, update the poster, laminate it again, and put it back up again. So just that ongoing living of, here are the things in the moment that we're talking about that we believe will have high impact long term for students as we discuss their needs.
We've also seen then the continuums, and we often refer to them affectionately as menus of support, or the placemat oftentimes, as they're printed off lots of times on 11 by 17s. But when we see that posted up in classrooms, in where teachers are engaging in planning, so that at a chance they can glance over on, okay, what's something else that I could maybe try. I had one school this past year that had shared, when they had developed their tier 1 refinements, had narrowed it down, they would then, and I saw one example from a school where they would put it on a poster of, this is what we do or we believe within our school. But this school said, we'll be right back to continue this episode. Leaders, are you looking for the most effective ways to empower your staff and elevate student support? Jigsaw Learning invites you to our free 2025 Collaborative Response Virtual Summit on October 24th. Join us online to learn directly from school and district leaders who are transforming their organizations with collaborative response. Discover how this robust framework can deepen your multi-tiered approach, build collective staff capacity, and ensure success for all learners. You'll gain practical resources, connect with educational leaders globally, and unlock numerous surprises, all at no cost. Mark your calendar for October 24th, 2025. Registration opens September 1st. Don't miss this opportunity to strengthen your leadership and build a thriving school culture. Visit JigsawLearning.ca for details and get ready to empower your team. And now back to our conversation. This school said they had put it on a main bulletin board and then had QR codes to each one that would then go to a little video that would describe what is that practice. It was their tier 1 literacy practices that they had determined. But we've also seen this in a school division where they set tier 1 across the division, and then every school had a bulletin board that talked about their 5 domains of quality pedagogy that they had established division-wide as their tier 1.
And many schools and districts will come down to those tier 1 big rocks.
Big rocks, yeah.
But then connect resources to further describe and ensure that everyone understands what that big rock is. So just that idea of linking in additional resources so that, your visual includes a certain amount of text, but then we know that we can access that online and have actually a lot of depth and description to what our continuum actually means.
Well, you and I both had the opportunity back earlier in the year to see one school where it was a set of their continuum was a set of slides that then they could navigate through. There was links all the way through that would offer up ideas. Someone would have it open during their collaborative team meetings. I saw another school where they had created a Google site where it listed everything in their continuum, but then it would have additional hyperlinks to videos, to websites, to drive resources.
Supporting resources, yeah.
And just this past week, I had the chance to go into a school, and they haven't done it yet. I'm going to ask for a sample when they do get it finished, but what they were talking about was on their continuum, putting a QR code and just a little, probably a bit.ly link there, but that would go to a Google form so that at any point, if someone wanted to submit another idea, they could do that easily when the form, almost similar to the laminated poster, when it got messy, when the form got filled with some things, they would update their continuum. But I thought that was a really neat way to keep that.
It's that continual renewal, which is really fantastic. I was in a school about a year ago, and what they had done was to create bins for each of their teams. And in those bins, they would have their roles and their blank team meeting agenda just to help remind them and guide them. But then they would include their pyramid of interventions.
We used to refer to that as the pyramid of interventions. They're continuums. The continuum of supports that would be available was printed right off.
It was printed and added to the bin, which is a great idea, because that's that consistent reminder that that this is part of the conversation as we go forward. So that bin had all the resources that they would need for each team as they engage in their collaborative team meeting, actually any meetings. They also included snacks.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Well, and you mentioned the role then too, of being able to say, it's my role in the meeting to be holding on and referencing, because I've seen meeting spaces where there were continuums set out on tables, but nobody looked at it because it wasn't really clearly identified who's doing that. Now, I also love when we see the continuum getting projected up so that we can be referencing it during our meetings. And of course, the WeCollab software allows us to do that as well, where we can do that quick search and see the resources right there to be able to access.
We also have seen schools where they have their meeting notes projected, but then they also have another projector where they've projected up their continuum of supports as well, so that they're both very visible as they're working through their meeting.
Absolutely. So I hope that this has given some ideas for bringing that continuum to life in your school, so that it's not a one and done kind of activity, but rather something that can just continue to build, refine. And again, we're normalizing that in our organization. We talk about what it is that we do. We share our instructional practices. So we hope you've been able to take some ideas. Would love for you to be able to send us some examples of your continuums. How have you brought them to life? We'd love to hear some of the great ideas that are happening out there to support staff teams and students as well. So with that, we wish you all the best and look forward to connecting again soon.
See you soon.
For more on collaborative response, visit JigsawLearning.ca or join the JL Insider to receive access to newly added resources and content. Make sure to follow us on social media. Subscribe to the podcast and the Jigsaw Learning YouTube channel to access past and upcoming episodes. Join us again to continue to build your own capacity and leading collaborative response in your context.